Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Knutson with Fairfax County's Department of Transportation, and I want to welcome you to this meeting tonight to discuss the traffic calming plan for Kingstream Drive. We can start with introductions, and tonight from FCDOT we have Ryan O'Carroll and Grace Vaughn, and from the Drainesville District Supervisor's Office we have Natalie Simpson joining. Ryan has a short presentation to go through, and after the presentation, we'll open the meeting up to the community for any questions or comments. And if any of the community's task force members are logged on to tonight's meeting, they can introduce themselves following the presentation. Natalie, is there anything you'd like to add before we start?
Yeah, just a brief introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Simpson. I work for the Drainesville District Supervisor. I serve as the liaison between our office and FCDOT during RTAP processes. So any questions, comments, or concerns throughout this process, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll put my email in the chat so that everyone has it.
All right, thanks, Natalie. And Ryan, if you're ready, you can go ahead and start the presentation.
Sure, thanks, Steve. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, we are going to discuss the traffic calming program for Kingstream Drive. The Fairfax County Department of Transportation and Fairfax Connector operate programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. For more information, please visit the website listed in the presentation slide. Please note that this session is being recorded and may be shared on social media. Please hold all questions until the end of the presentation. Instructions for how to ask your questions will be provided at the end of the presentation. So today we are going to explain the traffic calming process, provide an opportunity for community feedback, and answer any questions anyone may have. So what is traffic calming? Traffic calming is the installation of physical devices to reduce vehicle speed. These devices can either be vertical or horizontal. Vertical devices are driven over, such as the speed hump shown in the upper left-hand corner. Horizontal devices can be driven around, such as the raised median island shown in the upper right-hand corner. Both types of devices make the roadway safer for drivers and pedestrians. Please note that through this process, we are not permitted to install stop signs. Here we have charts and images showing the effects of decreased speed. As speed decreases, visual acuity, field of vision, and depth perception increase. Also, with reduced speed, we can see a decrease in stopping distance. Here's a map displaying traffic calming projects across Fairfax County. With over 279 projects resulting in more than 665 devices countywide, every district has implemented traffic calming measures. The chances that you've driven over one is quite high. FCDOT and the District Supervisor's Office collaborate with citizens on all community-initiated projects. The program can be broken up into 5 steps. Step 1 is project initiation. Step 2 is plan development. Step 3 is community engagement. Step 4 is the ballot phase. And the final step, step 5, is project installation. All traffic calming projects are community initiated. The process begins with a request from the community to the supervisor's office. Once the request is received, FCDOT will complete a basic eligibility review. If eligible, FCDOT will then conduct a traffic study. And if the eligibility and traffic study requirements are met, the community will then form a task force. To meet the basic eligibility requirements, the roadway must be VDOT maintained, have a 25 mph speed limit, be functionally classified as local, collector, or arterial, and if it is a collector or arterial, it needs to be a residential street. Once passing basic eligibility requirements, we move on to conduct a traffic study. Out of the 4 streets studied, Kingstream Drive was the only one that met the requirements for the traffic calming program. For the volume criteria, we need between 500 to 6,000 vehicles in 24 hours, both directions combined. For Kingstream Drive, we had 1,618 vehicles, so we met the volume criteria. For the speed criteria, the recorded 85th percentile speed needs to be greater than or equal to 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. This means that 15% of vehicles will need to be traveling at 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit or faster in at least one direction of travel. The 85th percentile speed was 30 miles per hour in the northbound lane and 35 miles per hour in the southbound lane, which means that Kingstream Drive met the speed criteria in the southbound lane. The next step is plan development. FCDOT will conduct a site visit in the field in order to develop the draft plan. Once a draft plan has been developed, FCDOT will meet with the task force to obtain feedback and amend the plan if necessary. Then once the task force is satisfied with the draft plan, property owners directly adjacent to any proposed measures must sign off on the device placement before proceeding to the next step of the project. There are device placement requirements for vertical devices. Devices must be a minimum 300 feet between measures and from existing stop conditions, a minimum of 150 feet from intersections, a minimum of 150 feet for continuous sight distance, and it also has to fit within the existing roadway. So we must consider driveways, manholes, utilities, and the grade of the road. So based on those requirements, we created a field map that gives us an idea of where we can place a device. Highlighted in green are possible locations on Kingstream Drive. After reviewing the field map, we then conduct a field review to see if a device can fit on the existing roadway. Based on available options in our site visit, FCDOT is able to propose 6 speed humps along Kingstream Drive. The listed addresses are those of property owners who signed the adjacent property forms because the devices are directly adjacent to their property. Here we have the speed hump schematic. The speed hump is 12 feet long and is 3 inches high at center. There will be a white chevron in each travel lane and speed hump signs with a recommended speed of 15 miles per hour on each side of the speed hump. This is a larger image of what the speed hump would look like from the side of the street, with it being 12 feet in length and 3 inches high at center. Step 3 is the community meeting, which is where we are today. At this stage, FCDOT presents the plan to the community to gather feedback. Based on this feedback, the task force will decide whether to amend the plan or move to the next phase. If the task force decides to move forward, we move to the ballot phase. During the ballot phase, each occupied property in the ballot area will receive 1 vote and send it directly to the district supervisor's office. The ballot period will be open for a minimum of 3 weeks, and the district supervisor's office will tally the votes and notify the task force of the result. On this slide, we have an example of a ballot. The proposed devices will be listed on the ballot, and the community will be voting for the entire plan. The task force is responsible for distributing the ballot packages to everyone in the ballot area. There are 3 ways to return your ballot by the deadline. You can mail in your ballot directly to the district supervisor's office. You can hand deliver it directly to the district supervisor's office, or you can email it directly to the district supervisor's office. Please note that all ballots must be directly turned into the district supervisor's office using one of these 3 methods. Any ballots collected by the task force will not be counted. Here is the ballot area map for Kingstream Drive. In total, there are 248 ballots. In order for the proposed plan to move forward, we will need greater than 50% of all occupied properties to vote in favor. Therefore, we will need 125 yes votes. And if the required number of yes votes are met, we move forward to step 5, which is project installation. The traffic calming plan will be presented to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors for endorsement, and the resolution will be sent to VDOT. Once endorsed and VDOT accepts the resolution, FCDOT will work with the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services to schedule installation. Finally, the traffic measures outlined in the plan will be installed. After tonight's meeting, the task force will need to follow these next steps. The task force notifies Fairfax County if they would like to move forward with the presented plan. An optional meeting is available to meet with FCDOT to review the balloting process. This meeting is highly recommended to ensure a smooth balloting process. The task force and the supervisor's office will notify FCDOT if the ballots in the ballot area are to be distributed to the property owners or occupants. The task force completes a ballot cover letter provided by FCDOT, including the task force contact information, the ballot received by date, and the ballot closed by date, and any additional messages or any additional information the task force wishes to include. Task force sends the completed ballot cover letter to FCDOT for approval. Once approved, they will receive the verified ballot package. And for the final step, the task force will need to print and distribute the ballots to all properties in the ballot area. This concludes the presentation, and now we can move on to the questions and answers portion of the meeting tonight. Tonight you have two options to ask your questions, chat or speak. Once the chat item is activated on Teams, you can use it by typing your question. If you choose to speak, please click the raise your hand icon, and once the host calls on you to speak, you can unmute yourself by clicking on the mic icon or pressing Control, Shift, and M on your keyboard. Please lower your hand once you are done asking your question. If you are on the phone, please press *5 to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak and the host sends you a request to unmute, press *6 to unmute, and you can ask your question. Once you are finished, please press *5 again to lower your hand and then push *6 to mute yourself. At this time, please feel free to ask any questions you may have, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. The first hand I'm seeing is from Jim. Jim, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
I'm happy to go while Jim finds mute.
Okay.
Why don't we give him just a second longer? And
there we go. I'm sorry. This is Jim
Right.
Rower. I'm sorry. I unmuted my mic, not the mic on the screen. So did both of them. I'm Jim Rower. I'm the chair of the Traffic Calming Committee here in Kingstream, and I wanted to express our appreciation for the efforts of Natalie Simpson and Supervisor Bierman's office, for Steve Knutson and his team at Fairfax DOT, who came in and listened to our concerns regarding the traffic in our community, came out and studied the situation, developed this plan, and made this presentation as well. The members of our Traffic Calming Committee, I think everybody is on the call right now, but also for our community as well. I think everybody is the number of people here demonstrate the interest within our community, the concern that we have, and our shared goal of enhancing the safety of our community. I really appreciate everybody being on the call and all the efforts that went into building to this, the plan, the presentation of the plan, and then the discussion of the plan, and the more important questions that might come up from my neighbors in the community. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay. The next hand I saw, I think somebody's hand went down, but Stephen, you're the next one I saw. If you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. My name is Steve Meister. I live at 1574 Kingstream Circle. I was away when you were out here doing your surveys, and I appreciate your efforts to at least address Kingstream Drive. But we have found over the 37 years we've lived here that traffic has increased. Not too shocking, but it's gotten to the point, especially when the high school is in session, that our circle address is being utilized quite a bit to just zip down from the high school and around and then connect with Kingstream Drive. My understanding is that you also surveyed Kingstream Circle, but came to the analysis that we did not qualify for any kind of speed reduction devices. I disagree with that because I witnessed this throughout the day. I'm retired now. I'm retired law enforcement. I have some experience in this kind of situation, and it's only gotten worse, especially when the high school is in session. So I would ask for you to do another survey of Kingstream Circle when the school is back in session, and you can see for yourselves how fast the cars go by, and that pets or children have not been struck is a miracle. That's my survey.
Okay, I do believe that we counted the 3 other streets that didn't qualify twice, which is generally the practice we'll do, if it doesn't qualify the first time. If the community asks for a follow-up count, we'll do a second count. Generally, we're going to want to wait a year or 2 before we count again, but I think if this task force or the community would resubmit that request for the southern portion of Kingstream Circle, Natalie, I think our office would be open to recounting it if you guys want to go ahead and take that request and forward it to us.
When you say you guys, you mean my wife and me, or?
Well, it should come from the Civic Association. I do believe they're the ones that made the original request, so I think they would still need to repost or resubmit that request.
Okay, well, we have had Fairfax County Police out here at different times, and they've been able to fill the coffers of the county with issuing traffic citations. Why they, I guess, focus mainly on the Kingstream Drive and not on Kingstream Circle, which is used as, especially if Kingstream Drive is approved for any kind of speed bumps. It's just going to lead more people to want to come down Kingstream Circle in order to avoid the speed bumps, at least for the section that the Kingstream Circle allows them to go through until they get to Kingstream Drive. So it's one thing is going to cause another. The speed bumps on Kingstream Drive, once they're implemented, will lead more traffic even to come up and down Kingstream Circle, in my humble opinion.
So there are basically 2 disconnected pieces of Kingstream Circle. And are you looking at the more northern part that's closer to the high school, or the southern part that connects down to Bennett Street?
Well, Kingstream Circle starts, Bennett Street turns into Kingstream Circle, or you can make a left and go and Kingstream Drive. The Kingstream Circle, in that it's a circle, connects from the Kingstream Drive, where it becomes, you have a choice. It's Kingstream Circle, Kingstream Drive. You make a left on Kingstream Drive, you just stay in Kingstream Drive. But if you go straight and Bennett turns into Kingstream Circle, that circle then merges into a T intersection where there's a stop sign from the circle into Kingstream Drive, and you have a choice to go back towards the high school, or you can go right and head towards Drainsville.
Right, I understand. I'm looking at the road network right now, and I'm just trying to find out that if you do make the request, if you're asking for that southern part. So if you do want to have Kingstream Circle recounted for a 3rd time, please be sure to define the portion of Kingstream Circle that you're wanting to recount, unless you want both pieces recounted. Because it is kind of disconnected, and we would need to count on both pieces if that's what you're interested in.
Well, it is one stretch that people tend to speed on. It doesn't just stop at the south or the northern end. It just, unless they want to turn off to a side street. But otherwise, Kingstream Circle is used to come down at least 10, sometimes 20 miles more than the speed limit should allow. And I mean, I witnessed it myself. I'm here throughout the day and obviously at night, and I can see especially speeding cars and cars racing down at all hours of the day and the night. So I don't know why it was not observed before, but that's what I've noticed, and
Okay.
that's why I think, just like the town of Vienna or some place like that, that's why after a while you start putting speed humps, as they call them, because just to discourage people from, flying, basically.
Right. And like I said, if you would like, go ahead and make that request to resubmit the count, and we'll take a look at it. It would be good if we're specific about the areas of concern. So if we can move on, I think that Mary Ann's been waiting to ask a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I have two quick questions. So the first one is, can you explain how the decision was made on which houses get a vote in this? I was kind of surprised when I saw the map. So like, how did you decide that Edie's Park residents get a vote, but Kingstream Circle residents do not? Could you explain? Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I think I was calling Kingstream Circle, Kingsvale Circle, Kingstream, because Kingstream can exit out to Drainsville Road directly onto Bennett Street without driving over the devices. So any road that does have direct access to the main transportation network without driving over the device locations or, the road and, being studied, then they're generally not going to be included in the ballot process.
Gotcha. That's okay. That's super interesting. I did not realize that. Thank you for clarifying. I do think Steve previously does have an interesting point. Like, I do think this could force more traffic down Kingstream Circle. We know high schoolers do that in the mornings. But anyways, wasn't my question. My second question was, I just want to make sure I understood the data super crisp when you guys went over the studies. So it sounded like at the 85th percentile, we just barely met the minimum in one of the directions to qualify for this.
Correct.
Is that so? Objectively speaking, we are barely making the minimum for one of these initiatives in a single direction.
Correct, but you did have a fairly high volume too. So you are talking about, if you just split the volumes in half, which I'm assuming that they probably are fairly even, we're still talking about, 120 trips going 35 miles an hour or greater. So it is a fairly, often instance that people are going 10 miles over the posted speed limit on a residential road.
Perfect. Okay, just wanted to double check that. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We also had some similar questions in chat. Somebody asked for the map of where the speed humps would be located. And Natalie went ahead and put that in chat for us. Somebody had asked about why Kingstream Circle wasn't allowed to vote, which I believe you addressed, and then also about the street just barely made the requirement in a single direction. Isn't this overkill? Which I think you addressed. And then there was a question about if the houses on Park Stream Terrace are allowed to vote.
Let's see, Park Stream Terrace, I do believe, can we pull up that ballot map? I do believe that they are included in the ballot area. They should be. But they are all of Park Stream except for the portion that is beyond the intersection of Kingstream Drive and between Kingstream and Streamvale are in the ballot area. So again, we use the same way of determining who is in the ballot area for Kingstream or for Park Stream Terrace, as we did for Kingstream Circle. And I do want to apologize to Steve. I do believe I thought it was Kingsvale. I thought Kingsvale was a portion of Kingstream Circle. So I'm sorry about that earlier.
Okay.
And also another thing, I'm sorry if I can interrupt really quick, Grace, just to follow up on the thought that it might be a lot of devices for the fact that we just qualified for the program. But it is also a fairly long road. I think it's around 4,200 feet long. So the devices are fairly well spread out over the length of that roadway.
Okay, thank you. There was a question about who can install stop signs, and Natalie put some good information about contacting VDOT. And then there was another question, are the 6 speed bumps all needed? That's approximately every 600 feet.
So again, yeah, it's about 700 feet apart. We, would like to keep them a little bit tighter than 700 feet, but we do feel that the locations that we are proposing are fairly well needed to help moderate the speed along the whole length of Kingstream Drive.
Okay, thank you. Kate, if you wanted to ask your question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can, Kate, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I have a few questions and concerns in general. Number one, I also am a Kingstream Circle resident, and I would love to ask to be reconsidered to have input into this process. I understand your point that you made, which to me appears to be an odd point, because in one direction, yes, we can exit the neighborhood, but not in the other direction without being affected. The other reason why I'd like Kingstream Circle, as well as Meadow Chase, and to be allowed input, is because I agree with the assertion that the implementation of these speed humps will directly affect the residents of Kingstream Circle the greatest, because I also believe, having lived on that street for almost 20 years, that any impact to Kingstream Drive will push traffic onto Kingstream Circle, and that it will just displace this speeding and this traffic onto other streets in the neighborhood. And then pretty soon we're just going to be a neighborhood full of speed bumps every 600 feet. So I would love to be able to have input on this from the get-go. My questions about the speed humps themselves, my two concerns that I would love to hear more about is, number one, how does this impact snow plowing? How we do have a number of contracted snow plows that will go up and down our neighborhood, and with them going over speed humps, how does that impact the ability for our roads to be plowed clearly and cleanly? And what is the long-term plan for wear and tear on the speed humps? They get cement chips or they get broken down. Is there a plan in place to repair and keep them not getting chipped up and ratty, or are they just installed and then when big cement chunks come out, then that's just for us to deal with, and the wear and tear on our automobiles?
Well, hopefully they won't be cement chunks, it will be asphalt. So once it's installed, it will fall to VDOT's responsibility to maintain. We can, whenever we're seeing any, major wear and tear on the devices, we can let them know and see if they can go out and do some patching on it before, the road comes up for repaving. Regarding snow removal, basically, the device has been, has been laid out by VDOT. They're the one that designed the device, so they're responsible for snow removal. They're not going to allow us to put something on the roadway that's going to inhibit their ability to do that part of their maintenance responsibility. So we do also when we are installing these devices, go in and take out about 1 inch of the asphalt on the leading edges of the device. So basically really around the 4 edges of the device where it ties into the gutter pan and where it meets the rest of the road surface in both directions. So then when we do bring that asphalt back up to the elevation that we want for the speed hump, there is a pretty nice transition from the road surface to the start of the speed hump, and it should get sealed when it's all done. And so that transition, that plow should be able to ride from the road surface under the top of the speed hump without chipping.
Thank you. I actually just have one last question, if you would indulge me just for another
Go ahead,
moment.
Kate.
Is there a reason why the traffic calming process has gone directly to devices instead of looking into, I think there's some of us in the neighborhood have been trying for years to get the police out to monitor or to ticket sporadically, and we've gotten very, very little response and no response at the appropriate times, meaning before school, after school, when the traffic volume is highest. I think, speaking for myself, I would love if, as a first step, we could engage with the police to come out and to ticket or to provide dissuasion to speeders in that way, rather than going to what I would consider to be an extreme option of permanent speed humps. And I'm just curious as to why those options were not looked at or attempted as a first step to see if that helped the situation.
So, I mean, generally when we go through this process, I'll tell the community that, they should and, can engage the local police to see if they can get additional enforcement if they are interested in that. But generally you're going to be, especially when, you said you're not seeing any additional enforcement during, peak hours. And the peak hours for traffic on Kingstream are the peak hours for traffic basically throughout the county. And that's when, the resources for the FCPD is stretched to its limit. So it's really hard to get them to do traffic enforcement, speed enforcement on residential roadways, during rush hour, during morning rush or afternoon rush. So, we can ask for more enforcement. If we get more enforcement, I'm not saying it's going to have to be at off hours, but it's most likely not going to be during the time frame when you're going to see most of your traffic on Kingstream, just because that's when the police are the busiest.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. If we want to move on to Ed.
Hi, this is Ed. Can you hear me?
We can, Ed, yes.
All right, thanks. I want to reiterate some of the things that Kate had to say and respond to one of the answers. So I live on Eddy's Park Raceway. So I'm well aware that a lot of our speed problem is not caused by kids from the high school. And we have had police monitored before in not in recent years, but in the times past. And our residents were frequently ticketed for high speed. Having said that, the volume question does involve the high school in a different way. Is there any possibility, has any attempt been made to redirect the traffic exiting the high school in the afternoons, which is when it seems that the speed is the highest, just to have the students exit through Drainsville Road? I know there's not a whole lot of room there, but with the presence of the school, Kingstream Drive is no longer a residential street. It's a major thoroughfare. So that there's not sure how to close that out, but there's a couple of thoughts. I just want to know if any consideration has been given to redirecting the traffic out of the high school.
No, I mean, this is basically the first time I'm hearing, this concern. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but that would be a conversation that you would need to have with the school. So the Drainsville office would probably need to reach out to Fairfax County Public Schools, either talk to their safety officers or talk to the principal at Herndon High School to see if there is any opportunity to redirect traffic back towards Drainsville Road instead of back into the community. It does seem like the quicker way for students to leave the school as opposed to driving through the community. So I mean that, I think the Civic Association could reach out to the Drainsville office and possibly see if there's, any possibility of getting some help from the high school to push that traffic directly back to Drainsville Road.
Does the high school control Bennett Street?
They don't control Bennett Street, but I do believe they can, make changes on their access points that fall on their property where it connects to Bennett Street. So they could put out cones and make it so it's just a right out as they're leaving the parking area. And that might be a possibility. It wouldn't be a permanent, physical feature, but, it'd be a possibility that, they could cone off, a left and out of there.
Understood. Thank you.
And that's just a possibility. I'm kind of like speaking for another group, so.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And Emma, if you wanted to ask your question, you can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, so it kind of, some of the questions I've had, I think really were kind of raised by Kate. But the one point I want to make is I think the biggest issue, speed is obviously an issue, don't get me wrong. The biggest issue we have right now is the blatant disregard of the stop signs. And I don't see how this is going to impact that at all. Particularly the stop sign at the pool, but also the stop sign, the three-way. And I think this probably gets into what folks were saying before about the Kingstream Circle issue. And, I think it was Ed's point, certainly this is not a high school thing. This is also residents. So, without kind of impacting the stop signs or enforcing the stop signs, I don't see how putting speed bumps in is going to fix that issue at all.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's going to fix that issue is if we can get some enforcement out there and we can make a direct request for enforcement, not necessarily for speed, but for the failure to stop it. Stop sign would be, a request that would need to go to the police. Again, they're going to be stretched. They're going to have limited resources to get to that particular level of enforcement. But it's, a question that can be. So, it's certainly something we can ask. But then also the devices will hopefully, get the drivers to, at least between the two stop conditions, monitor their driving behavior a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, honestly, I don't know how much these are going to help. I think enforcement's the better option. And not to kind of steal Robert's thunder, but, there was a comment in the chat about speed cameras, which to me, I think is going to be I honestly think enforcement's a much better way of dealing with this than trying to put in a bunch of speed humps that no one really wants. So I'll let you guys kind of go to the chat questions and handle that. Oh, sorry, Emma's got one thing.
Yeah, this is Emma. I'm going to just redact something. I'm sorry. Moderating. Can you say your name again?
My name?
Yes.
Steve Knutson.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, I'm so used to Zoom that Teams is just different in terms of the view. There was a comment made a few minutes ago about talk to the high school about making it a right turn only coming off Bennett Street. There is no one at Herndon High School, the office, the administrators, dean of students, any of that, who is going to manage that. That is, I don't know if it's Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and then we end up back in this loop again. We have to be in control and manage what we want for this situation for the streets. That is not something that we can call Herndon High School and manage. I've been working in the schools for 20 some years, both in Fairfax and beyond. That's not a call to high school thing. We have to manage that here. So I just want to redact the error that was communicated.
Well, I mean, we do have an instance, I think it's South County High School, where they have done some management, some access management out of their high school. It's not something that everybody agrees with, the decision that they made, but they did actually, they use, cones as a temporary block off from, making a left turn coming out of the school. So it can be done. And I am looking, and I don't know if this was just some temporary markings, but if you look at the backside of the exit coming out of the high school at where Bennett turns into Kingstream, there's some interesting markings on the roadway there. It looks like there are some X's. Not sure, only my street level. It looks like there are some X's out there where they're trying to lead drivers to do a right turn coming out of the back end of the school property on the Bennett. So, I mean, it is something that's possible. It can be done. It's not always the easiest thing, but right now it does look like it's school property. If we were trying to do some kind of access management, we would have to work with the schools to do that.
And the school's got a lot more to deal with, so I think we really have to do this at the county level.
Okay.
This school is dealing with education. They're not dealing with right turn only.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, just to get through some of the chat comments and questions, there was a comment from Rich that says Meadow Chase is used as a cut through. And then somebody asked about speed control on Kingstream Drive will send more cars down Kingstream Circle as a workaround where they can fly around the bend after passing a tot lot and basketball court with lots of kids. Has anyone taken that into account as far as voting for these measures? And there was some agreement with that statement or question.
Okay, can you read that again, Grace?
Yeah. Speed control on
Go ahead.
Speed control on Kingstream Drive will send more cars down Kingstream Circle as a workaround where they can fly around the bend after passing a tot lot and a basketball court with lots of kids. Has anyone taken that into account as far as voting for these measures?
Okay, so we can count or recount the different roads in here, Kingsvale Circle or Kingstream Circle, and see if they do qualify. But we are right now focused on trying to get some speed reduction on Kingstream Circle, and we were trying to look at address some of the areas that do show some, pedestrian type activity on this roadway when we were putting together the device locations.
Okay. And there was another comment about needing speed cameras to send tickets to the drivers' homes.
So the cameras to do speed enforcement are currently in a pilot program. I do believe, and Grace, you probably worked with this a little bit more, they are still tied to school locations. Is that right? School locations and road construction sites?
Yeah, just for school locations and construction sites, and they're adding more and more schools. I think they went from like 10 to 20 and they're adding like 100. So that may be something that could be soon.
That could, yeah, I mean, if possible, that could be applied to like Bennett Street there, where it's adjacent to the high school. So I think it would have to be on a street location that is pretty much immediately adjacent to school property. And I do believe that would basically be Bennett Street as far as the community that we're talking about right now.
Okay, and then another comment, the last speed bump will cause kids to go down Meadow Chase and they already speed down that street. Um,
All
and
right.
then,
And as far as the displaced traffic is concerned, I mean, it might happen on occasion, it might happen a couple of times, but we are talking about, driving a little ways out of the way, making additional 1, 2, 3 additional turns. One a left turn, a second a left turn, and then a right turn to get back onto the route that you were originally driving on. So, I mean, it is possible, but it does seem, if I were a driver and I were trying to avoid something that's trying to make me slow down, I don't know how far out of the way I would be driving and how many additional turns I would be, wanting to do to avoid the device.
okay, there were also some comments. I think they were in reference to talking about Kingstream Circle and whether or not it's disconnected, and maybe some confusion with the names from
Yeah,
earlier.
that was my fault. I'm sorry. I was looking at Kings Vale and I thought that was a piece of Kingstream Circle. So Kingstream Circle, as Steve was describing it, is an extension of Bennett Street, circles back around to Kingstream Drive. Then I got confused with Kings Vale Circle, and I thought that was a disconnected piece of Kingstream Circle. So I'm sorry about that.
Okay, and then just one more chat. The bump near Eddie's Park seems to be within a few feet of the stop sign at the pool intersection.
So it does have to be 300 feet away if we can pull up the device location map. So we are, at least 300 feet away from that stop condition. So we should be okay there. So Ryan is now showing, this is the original map that we work off of that shows locations that are open for us to consider for device placement.
Okay. Another chat question, or let me read the chat comment. I'm cautiously optimistic that the humps will inhibit traffic through our neighborhood. High school traffic may choose to avoid the humps altogether and opt for Drainesville Road to Bennett Street. And then there was a question, will speed humps extend to the curb and gutters? Others I have seen in the area taper off, and drivers often drive to the curb to not have to slow as much, which poses potential greater risks.
Okay. If Ryan, if you want to show the schematic of the device, it does tie into the concrete on the curb and gutter. It does not go into the gutter pan. So we're not going to inhibit the drainage flow of that gutter pan. It does slope down at a fairly, decent drop off as it goes over towards the gutter pan. And I don't think it's going to be too terribly encouraging for people to get one wheel into the gutter pan and then one wheel driving over the middle of the device. I'm not sure that it's really going to be less impacting on the vehicle.
Okay. There was a question about, is there a plan that addresses this without so many devices?
So the task force can take the information that they get tonight and reconvene and determine if they want to move forward or if they want to move forward with all the device locations. So if they do decide to make any changes to the plan, then we would need to look at those changes, add or take off devices, and then have another community meeting.
Okay, there was a question, was the study conducted during the school year?
Correct. So, Grace, if you want to address that question, you can go ahead and answer the time.
I think it was March 20th that the study was conducted. But yes, we make sure to do it when school's in session and to make sure we're getting a normal collection of data.
And midweek.
Yep.
Okay. And we do have some hands up. Do we want to go ahead and answer a couple of questions of the people with their hands raised, or do we have a lot of questions? questions in the chat.
We have a lot in chat, but if we want to take some
Okay.
hands, you can go back. So Stephen, I think you're the first person with your hand raised. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. And listening to all the comments, many of which I agree with, it's having been with Fairfax County Police before, there's only so much they can do based on limited manpower, especially being assigned to residential areas. And as you pointed out, the times where these things happen, for the most part, are when the school lets out or it is about to begin. If you were to have the time to come by the school as it lets out around 3 p.m., you'll see how backed up then it gets waiting for the traffic light to change on Drainsville, and which is another reason why they use Kingstream Drive and Kingstream Circle to circumvent waiting there for up to 2.5 or 3 minutes at a time. In order to discourage that, I think nobody likes to get tickets and radar and that good stuff. But and the humps are also frustrating for people that have to go over it every day. But I think the speed cameras would probably be something that you would have then 24/7. You don't have to worry about police personnel being there at a certain time. I've seen cars go by very, very fast at 2 or 3 in the morning, just hearing them go swishing by. It's just.
If I can interrupt really quick about that, I'm not sure that they do leave the cameras on 24/7. That I'm not positive about, but I think it's during the school time and maybe only during pickup and drop off. So it is limited when the camera is operational. I believe that might be wrong, but I think that was their initial intent, was to do it during school hours.
Okay. Well, again, I just suggest perhaps you can observe it on your own and see how backed up it gets. And that's another incentive for people come out and, turn left and then left again onto Kingstream Drive, and to avoid the backup and having to wait. But I think the only way really to enforce, the speed limits, or shy of putting in speed bumps, is to, my dogs are going crazy here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I like to hear them bark. It's
their greeting party. Anyway, is, if you put a radar up there, it is something that will discourage people from, in my experience, from speeding, if they know that they're going to be caught, because otherwise, if they're just waiting for a police cruiser to be around, and then there is none, what's the deterrent? And so anyway, those are my last 2 bits of suggestions. Thank you for listening.
okay. And I do want to remind people that the radar program it's a pilot program right now. So they are, trying to work out how they want to apply it and where, and, if they want to move forward with it and have it grow. Okay. And if we want to move on to the next.
Yep, Nancy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, this is Mark speaking on her behalf. Two questions here. One, if the residents vote down the proposal, does that mean the entire process stops, or is there some kind of appeal process or whatever? And secondly, if everything goes smoothly, how long between now and the time of installation would it take?
So if it's voted down, then we would have to wait another 2 years for the road to enter back into the program. Generally, we're going to say maybe 6 to 8 months after the ballot process for installation. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, if you want to ask your question, you can go ahead.
Yeah, a couple comments and a couple questions as well. Great questions and concerns. I think the task force is going to take all this into account when we circle back around. We did meet with a Fairfax County police officer who's in charge of this area, asking whether we could have enhanced or increased presence, especially during school hours. And as Stephen pointed out, there's a resource issue there. We would, in a perfect world, we would have the police out there. Even seeing a ghost car on the street would cause people to slow down, but that's just not in the cards. I think that, and I was the one that made the comment about having all those speed humps could be a disincentive to people coming down Kingstream Drive, particularly in the morning, and choosing to go on Drainsville instead. I'm hoping that's the situation. When the task force did meet with Fairfax County DOT, we did raise the issue of what we called unintended consequences. I think Steve Knutson called it dislocated traffic. And we see it even now. I live on Kingsvale Circle, and just for people to get around, 3 or 4 cars, they'll come on Kingsvale Circle right below the high school football field, just as they do on Meadow Chase. It is further. It is 3 additional turns or 2 additional turns, but it only works if you're going 40 miles an hour rather than 25. And that is what people on Meadow Chase and on Kingsvale Circle are actually seeing. But I'm cautiously optimistic that the speed humps will actually inhibit traffic coming down. Now, in a perfect world, we'd love to ban traffic coming through the neighborhood, make everybody come out on Bennett. We really can't. And what we're trying to craft here or support is Fairfax County DOT's efforts to try to calm traffic on our street. I did have one question, though. When I look at the original eligibility review document, you were talking about eastbound, westbound. In the presentation, you talked about southbound and northbound traffic. So I'm a little bit confused. When you're saying southbound, you're talking about the morning traffic to the high school is faster than that leaving the high school? That would be northbound?
Yeah, I'm not positive where this data was collected, but if we flip back to the map, I'm assuming that it was collected on Kingstream Drive.
Right. No. I'm Steve. I'm looking at the eligibility review summary that you provided to the task force, and you had eastbound, westbound on that, and here you're talking northbound, southbound. So
I do think it was counted a couple of times. So I think one of the times that we did count Kingstream, it was on the curve up there, where it is kind of going from east-west direction to a north-south. So that might have been the confusion
up there. Yeah. When I first saw the westbound 35, eastbound 30. I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, they're definitely going faster when they leave the school. But actually, if you're talking southbound, northbound, it's amusing. And, this is a little tense, I guess. And it's amusing to think that kids are actually driving faster to go to school than to leave the school, which I find a bit bizarre. But just some thoughts there. And again, I appreciate hearing all of this from my neighbors, and the task force is going to take this all into account as we huddle up and try to figure out how we proceed forward on this. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you. May I ask your question?
Did you say Marianne? Sorry, it broke up for a sec.
Yeah, Marianne. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. My last question was just so if we implement this, how do we know that we're successful? Is there going to be another traffic study to show the reduction in numbers? Are we just assuming this fixes the problem? Is there going to be any data-driven approach to showing that we have successfully addressed the speeding situation?
So we do try to get out and do follow-up studies on our installations on streets that we've installed devices on. We don't get to all of them, but if you do have a particular concern about an installation, then you can make the request to the supervisor's office to be sure the Kingstream Drive does have follow-up data collected for it. And then we can take a look to see. We're generally going to want to wait a few months, though, after the installation to see if it has had any kind of modification to people's driving habits.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like, is there a plan to do a traffic retest in a year or so just to
Right.
get
Like
the
I
data
said.
to prove that it's been reduced, I guess? Like, how do we
Right.
know? Or maybe the question I'm asking is, how do we know that this is the right solution that's going to bring us, like, do we have a success metric? Do we know how to achieve it? And do we know how to quantify it?
So like I said, we do try to do follow-up studies on, as many of the installation or the streets we've worked on or installed devices on as we can. We don't necessarily get to all of them. We can make sure that we get the Kingstream Drive if the task force says, hey, we want a follow-up study in 6 months after the installation. So basically what we're looking at, we're not hoping that we get the average speed down to 25 miles an hour. I think that would be, something that we're never going to achieve, but we do want to see if we can get the road down to a point where it's not qualifying for the program anymore. So we want to get that 85th percentile speed below that 35 mile an hour. And Jim, do you have a follow-up question? I see your hands up again.
In error, sorry.
Okay. All right. And Marianne, did that answer your question? I hope it did. Okay.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marianne. And do we have more questions in the chat?
Yeah, we have some more questions in the chat. I think this was asked verbally, but if residents vote down, does the process stop? And if all is approved, how long does it take to complete installation? Which,
So yes, we did answer that question.
okay.
So it does stop it for 2 years and maybe 6 to 8 months after the ballot process.
And there was a question about if there's a possibility to consider fewer devices.
And again, that would be something the task force would have to take under consideration. And then if they do, we would re-meet.
And then a comment, it should be the entire community in voting, including the Streamvale Circle residents.
Okay. And again, we have the process to identify a ballot area. If the task force, reaches out to the supervisor's office and say, hey, we want to include, a greater portion of our community, we can take that under consideration.
Okay. And then there was a question about follow-up studies to see if it's actually working to calm the traffic and if this is a typical part of our review.
Okay, we did talk about that, and we will try to get back out to Kingstream to see, 6 to 10 months after installation to see what driving habits have been affected or not.
And then there was a question if the snow removal price increases because of the bumps.
That's, something that should not happen. I'm not positive that they can, make a change because of the installation of devices. So I don't know if you guys are contracting additional snow removal or if you're referencing the snow removal that VDOT does.
Okay, and then there's somebody who came in late. What type of speed?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit there, Grace.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay. Somebody asked what type of speed hump. They worked for Arlington County and it caused a lot of issues for local neighbors, and they started receiving claims for vehicle damage, and the communities are now using speed cameras. Are we using car-friendly speed bumps?
So yeah, I mean, I do believe that they are car-friendly speed humps. They aren't quite as aggressive as some devices, but the speed hump that we use, we've been using probably for 20 years or so, maybe even a little bit longer. I guess it's closer to 25 now, and we don't feel that it's having a horrible impact on, car maintenance.
Okay, there was another vote for speed cameras in there. And a comment about the increased police presence. The high school resource officer could park his vehicle on Kingstream Drive while students are coming and leaving schools.
Okay, and that's something they would need to work out with the school if it's a school resource officer.
Yeah, and then another, when I've done kiss and ride at the high school, they do direct traffic towards Drainsville, but there's not always staff available to direct traffic. And if we implement the speed humps, will there be a follow-up? We answered that one. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through, make sure we get everybody's questions. One here, can we prohibit all through traffic?
We can. I'm not sure that the volume that we collected would qualify this road for a cut-through program. It is a little bit lengthier and it does have, other impacts, but I mean, that's something that can be considered, but I'm not really certain that we were seeing the levels of volume for this area that's being served by Kingstream that would qualify for the cut-through program.
Okay, another comment, although I'm not a fan of cameras, it's the best solution. As a former LE, stop signs only have a short impact or effect when enforced by LE. It would have to be constant and continue on and on. And then another question, does all of Kingstream Drive need speed humps, especially that side connected to Drainsville?
So that would be something that the task force would want to consider. If they do want to, modify the plan at all. So
Okay.
we do feel that, the plan that we're showing does address speeding concerns along the whole length of the roadway, which is really the best approach. Trying to do a spot, reduction really isn't that effective.
Another question, what evidence is there that this solution will actually make Kingstream safer?
So again, I do think that Ryan did discuss, driving habits and how the reduction of speed does help drivers have additional time to respond, and it gives them a better field of vision as they're driving down the roadway. So we do feel that if we get, some reduction in speed, we are going to see, better, driving behavior and should have better response times.
And a question about what exact time the studies were done.
So it was a 24-hour period. We did do it in March. It was midweek.
And there's a suggestion to remove the first hump between Kingstream Circle, and hopefully that would help not displace traffic.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the questions. There's support for the task force moving forward as planned, not less devices, from a Kingstream Drive resident. And another question, don't speed humps have a negative impact on home values?
So we're not really seeing any negative impact on the property values as far as devices being put in. We haven't seen any kind of study that shows that there is a decrease in value. And I do believe that Jason and Emma might have their hand up again, Grace.
Okay, Jason and Emma, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, so I'm down on Vailbrook, which is one of the cul-de-sacs off the main drag, but I'm really bothered by the fact that many of our neighbors, the Kingstream Circle and the Meadow Chase people, who are also within the HOA who initiated this conversation, they're being excluded from the vote, and I think we really need to consider that before putting out the ballots.
Okay, like I said, if the task force, asks the supervisor's office, we can take it under consideration. Okay, and Grace, do we have any more questions in the chat?
Yeah, give me 1 second. What exactly would make the committee consider fewer devices? It was said you could, not that you would.
So again, that would be something that, I think, communication to the task force would be the best way to start that conversation.
Okay, and then another comment, we are unfortunately not on board with this initiative and we strongly request that it be reconsidered to have all residents in the neighborhood who are impacted by this initiative be afforded the opportunity to vote.
Okay, and again, that would be something we can take under consideration.
And then another question, if the plan is implemented and the follow-up study doesn't show statistically significant reduction, are the speed humps removed?
No, they're only going to be removed if the community requests that they're removed and we go through another ballot process.
Okay, and then there's a suggestion for increased police speed enforcement at places not near stop signs. And a request for Kingstream Circle to be considered to be added to the ballot, I think.
Okay, and again, we've talked about that.
Okay, and then somebody asked, how do we do that request for fewer devices?
So I do believe there's some task force members on. I don't know if they want to put any links to their their email address or their phone number in, or if we just want to reach out to the supervisor's office and contact the task force that way, or the civic association. So that would be the best way to go. I don't know if any of the task force members would like to weigh in on as far as, what kind of contact information they want to share out at this point, or if they just want to have that communication go through the supervisor's office. And it looks like Jim has his hand up. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and weigh in if you could, please?
Yeah, I love getting emails from everybody. No, there's been some great, as I said earlier, there's some great comments and some great suggestions here tonight. You all should have my email address. It was in the information that was sent out, that posted down at the pool, and it was sent out as part of this informational meeting. It's JIMROEWER@verizon.net. Would love to hear about whatever input, suggestions, comments, concerns that you have about the plan, about the number and location of speed humps. The task force certainly would welcome your input on that, and we do want to hear from you. So look at the information that went out in the newsletter, on the website, and then also for this meeting, you've got my contact information, my email address. Again, JIMROEWER@verizon.net, and send me your thoughts.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Okay. Somebody asked who pays for the speed hump installation and possibly removal at a later date.
I'm sorry, you were again breaking up. Can you repeat that, Grace?
Who pays for the speed hump installation and possible removal?
Who pays for it? The county would pay for it. So it comes out of the general fund for the county.
And just so Jim knows, people are asking him to put his contact information in the chat. And another question, so all of this is being done based on one 24-hour study. Shouldn't more data be collected to give us better information one way or another?
So we do feel that if we show that there is a speeding problem, that we are able to act upon it, and then we will let the community make the determination if they want to move forward with that or not. And it does look like Jim might have just dropped his email address in the chat. Is that correct, Grace?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, thank you very much, Jim.
And I'm not sure if Jason and Emma had another question or if I just didn't lower their hand. But if you...
Our hand is down, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
And I think I've gotten all the questions in chat, but if you ask something and I didn't address it, please ask again, because I got a little overwhelmed with all the messages coming through. But I see Beth has her hand raised.
Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out how to unmute. Can you all hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now, Beth.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone from FCDOT and from the supervisor's office, both for answering questions, being supportive throughout this process, for facilitating this meeting tonight. I appreciate all of the feedback we've gotten, all of the questions we've gotten. I think there are really good points and questions on all sides of this issue. So again, I just thank everybody who assisted in facilitating this meeting and everyone who showed up to give their opinions. I appreciate all of the information and feedback.
All right, thank you very much, Beth.
Jeffrey asked, will the replay and slides be available?
So the slides were sent to the supervisor's office. I believe that you can make a request for those slides, but the video should become available pretty quickly. I won't think it takes too very long for that to become available. If you were logged on tonight, you should be able to see it again, if that's really what you would choose to do. But then if you didn't, and if the task force and the community wants to share it out with the community at large, we will have it posted to YouTube. That generally takes about a week or so. So yes, the information will be made available to any that ask for it.
I'll go ahead and put my email again in the chat so that anyone that wants the slides can reach out to me and I can share that with them.
Thank you, Natalie.
Ted asks, school buses also speed on Kingstream Drive. Who do we make this complaint/report to?
So that should go to public schools. I don't know if you want to reach out to the supervisor's office or just directly contact the school district, but yeah, I mean, that would be something that they would need to have a conversation with their drivers with about. And it looks like Ryan now has contact information up for FCDOT and for the Drainsville District Office. So if you do want to send in an email asking any follow-up questions, I would just go to dotinfo@fairfaxcounty.gov with Kingstream Drive traffic calming in the subject line, or you can call 703-877-5600 and talk to one of the staff members on board tonight. Or you can email Natalie, pardon me, at drainsville@fairfaxcounty.gov with Kingstream Drive traffic calming in the subject line. I believe Natalie also dropped her work email address in the chat. And then also you can call 703-324-7329 for a conversation with somebody at the Drainsville office. Natalie, is that the best number to call your office? I'm not positive about that.
Yes, that would be the best number to call.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad about that then. Okay, Grace, do you think we've addressed the questions in the chat?
I think so. I'm not seeing any more. I'm not seeing any hands, so I hopefully we're good. But if you want to give it a minute to,
yeah, we can give the community members a minute or two to ask anything else before we sign off. But it does seem like we had a fairly engaging conversation. It does look like Josh has just raised his hand.
Yep.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to again thank Beth and Jim for their hard work for the community, and then all of you for your hard work on our behalf. And this project really was started out of an abundance of concern for the community itself. So I definitely didn't want to lose sight of that fact for this this project. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the comments, Josh. All right, I think we're just going to go ahead and close it down for tonight. And like I said, information, the video should be available to people that were logged on fairly quickly. We will have a copy of this on YouTube. And then you can also ask for the slides from the supervisor's office, and Natalie should be able to provide those fairly quickly. So I want to thank everybody for attending tonight and spending their evening discussing this topic. And we do hope that we have some resolution and some help for this community. Thank you, everybody who attended.
And my apologies, Steve, but that is actually not the best number to reach our office. So I'll go ahead and put in the chat the best number to reach the Dranesville District Supervisor's office.
Okay, I do believe that's what's listed on the website for the county, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Ryan? Is that where the number came from?
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Let me double check. Oh, sorry.
Well, I did check this afternoon and I saw that because that is a different number than what I'm used to seeing. So when I saw that, I was kind of surprised, and that's why I asked Natalie. So if you wanna double check that, and before you disperse any slides, you can go ahead and possibly modify it if it needs to be, or if that number still works, that's fine.
Sure. Yeah. I'll put the phone number they have on the website in the chat. Yeah. Yep, Natalie got that.
Okay, and yeah, and that is the one I'm normally used to seeing. So, okay, and we can make that modification and resend it to you, Natalie, if you would like, or you can possibly edit it yourself. But just let us know. We'll resend it to you. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Everybody have a good night.